Okay, hello. I just wanted to go through the handout to get yourself familiar with some of the parts since we're having a timed ride coming up soon, and we have started talking about some of the theology. But this is a handout, of course, that you can print and have with you during the timed ride as well. And I would be making some annotations in my book about some of these concepts. So, a lot of these terms you should be familiar with. This is interesting. The 7 deadly sins. I think at certain points, maybe toward the end of the novel, we might see this as an interesting classification system of thinking about some of the characters and some of the sins that are being explored by Hawthorne. So just note that we've talked about the garden. We've seen some images of the snake and Lucifer, evil. Is going to be a significant issue here. Okay, I think we did do a little conversation about the Imago Dei, and these are some, I think, very helpful scriptural references that will be helpful also in terms of quoting in the timed ride, and you also might use some of this for some L2 in your EAC entries. It'll help you work with some of these concepts, but so I think this is where we get some of the definition of man in our image, the image of God within each of us. So I think those are helpful. Then the other large concept that we'll be talking about, and these are concepts we'll be looking at and exploring in both novels this semester, so it's good to start practicing with this. This concept of natural law is that we're all programmed internally to understand what the moral law is, what good and evil is. It's almost implanted inside of us, and this is why often when we sin, we physically don't feel we physically don't feel well. There's something that in another article I'll reference in a minute talks about we're out of kilter. So we have this is the source of guilt. Of course, if we don't have a moral conscience at all and we're a psychopath, then this doesn't usually work. But for the most of us, we understand what right and wrong is. God has implanted that inside of our soul. And if we use rationality to discern about moral situations and listen to our heart, and we will access what is morally correct. And that's the idea about natural law. So we have some really important scriptural references that work very nicely. Thomas Aquinas, this is a very famous statement. Again, we want to practice incorporating some of this language into our analysis. To the right, for instance, is helpful. That there's an innate principle of reason. He's naturally inclined to good. This is the function of natural law to which man is bound to adhere according as it is in his power. As to these things that are added to the natural law by way of determination, that the more these are in conformity with the natural law, the more they are part of natural law. So, again, we instinctively understand this. Then we've got some scriptural references to put the law in their hearts. It's a nice phrase that we'll see play in their minds and write it on their hearts. These are some good images that capture the definition nicely. I will give you a new heart and a new spirit I will put within you. This is a nice image also. Remove your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. This idea of the flesh is that we can feel, again, what is morally correct. Then we have some comments by papal encyclicals, Quantum of Spes, that also talks about the natural law and the depths of his conscience. Man detects a law, and so that is significant there. Then in this section, these are ideas, sort of some bullet points from this article about natural law, so a variety of different ways to talk about the concept of natural law. So you can read through that. Then the other concept that we'll see in both novels is virtue ethics, and the theological virtues, faith, hope, and love, the cardinal virtues. These, again, are the opposite or the contrary to the cardinal sins as well. But it's a nice framework to evaluate characters, whether they're trying to, especially, for instance, Hester, practice some of these virtues. These are objective truths. And so we also have a couple of more precise comments about this ethical principle. So this is similar to natural law, but this comes from Aristotle and Plato. But these virtues can be practiced and internalized by us. Okay, so that is some more elaboration. You can read that. And then at the end here are some psychological terms, and this very much is at play with Hawthorne anticipating, very interestingly, Freud and some of the concepts of the ego, the id, the superego, stages of moral reasoning. You can link to those for more elaboration, but I think these provide some interesting framework as well. Understanding the mind, we're going to see this with Chillingworth and Dimsdale, and some of these psychological concepts. Okay, so just wanted you to begin getting oriented with the handout. We'll talk about these concepts as we keep moving through the novel.